Thank you, everybody, for being here to committee today. Appreciate you being here. We are going to delve right into bills. We are not working any bills today. I'm just going to restate what I stated yesterday, that we have I felt like the committee needed more time to work on the bills that we originally were going to work on today. Tentatively, I have placed those for the 11th to work on. The bill that we were going to hear actually ended up being referred to higher ed budget, so that opens some space up for there. There is another bill that was referred to us that I will be putting into the schedule, and we'll update the calendar as soon as I have that figured out, and that is the bill about removing an outdated offensive word for people who are typically different, or forget the right phrase for that. And I think that's a very important bill for us to fit in. Again, I will restate that we will not be working any bills tomorrow. We will be hearing 2663 and 2421. And members, you will not have to be in the building to vote for anything, so whether you decide to be remote or not is up to you, but please make sure that when I take attendance, if a lot of you are missing, I will take attendance with a tech person so we can record that you are online. With that, we are going to move right in, and we have a lot of people excited about our bills who'd like to speak today, so we're going to start with 2489, which is our bill referring to fentanyl and naloxone, and I am going to begin by having Jason explain that bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 2489 would enact a new law requiring school districts to provide education programs to students in grades 9 through 12 on the prevention of abuse and addiction to fentanyl and other opioids. The programs are based on guidance developed by the State Board of Education and can be presented as part of any other drug abuse and awareness programs that the district provides. Section 2 of the bill then requires school districts to maintain a stock supply of naloxone, or Narcan as it's known. Each district would be required to adopt policies and procedures for the storage and administration of it. Stock supply is defined in the bill as an appropriate quantity as recommended by the school nurse. Much of this language is similar to what we already have in statute regarding epinephrine kits and albuterol devices. Additionally, the district can receive gifts, grants, or other donations as assistance to acquire the stock supply. And then finally, Section 3 of the bill creates a grant program under the Kansas Fights Addiction Fund by authorizing the Attorney General to issue or award grants to school districts to assist in purchasing those stock supplies that they're required to have on hand. These provisions would go into effect on July 1st if enacted, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Revisor Long. Any questions for Representative Stockstill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Was there a fiscal note on this?
I don't know. I'd have to look real quick. We can for that.
Representative Steele.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jason. I just wanted a quick clarification. The school district, I didn't see a definition, and it just says the State Board of Education for the school district. Is that just USD's?
Yes.
Okay.
Whenever we say school district, we refer to the school districts organized. We don't always necessarily have to define it in statute, as it is a fairly common term.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions for Jason? I'm sorry. Yep. Okay, Jason, thank you very much. You may have a seat. So we do have the fiscal note that should be on the S drive for you. And just to hit the highlights of that. The Department of Education says no fiscal effects. The Attorney General Office estimates an FY28 cost of $32,000. The Kansas Association of School Boards points out that any cost not covered by the grants would be borne by the local school districts. So please take time to to see that for yourselves and go over that. Representative Stockstill.
Real quick, so this would be another unfunded mandate from the state for schools to provide the funding for the medication and the possible storage units for that?
I'll let you go first when the Attorney General's office testifies and ask that of them because of their grant system.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We do have a heavy schedule of those who would like to testify. So those who are testifying, please know that we do have your testimony with us. We're going to give you 1 minute, because we are hearing 2 bills today, to, I'm going to say a minute and a half, to highlight your testimony. I usually like to give more, but we always have to vary that based on the number of people in front of us. It's always very important to me that we give every single person an opportunity to be here. So more people equals less time. We will begin with Sarah Horstenstein from the Attorney General's office. And you do not look like Sarah.
As it turns out, I'm not Sarah, Madam Chair. My name is Chris Teeters with the Kansas Attorney General's office. Unfortunately, Sarah was not feeling well, so I'm going to take her place. And to respect the time limit, I will keep my remarks short, but most of our testimony is going to be consistent with what was written. Thank you. I'll give you my name here in just a moment. So the Office of the Attorney General has been consistent and outspoken advocate in confronting the fentanyl crisis in Kansas. Fentanyl is extraordinarily lethal, often hidden in counterfeit pills, and responsible for a growing number of preventable deaths of youth within our state. According to the Kansas Child Death Review Board, fentanyl is driving this increase. Between 2020 and 2023, Kansas recorded 48 child deaths involving fentanyl. Then this bill provides 2 key tools, both education and resources, to address fentanyl poisoning within our youth. One thing I would like to note here before standing for questioning is that we are requesting what we're calling a technical amendment here, which is that we're requesting that Section 3 be struck entirely because it does not change the status quo of the law as it currently stands. Schools are currently eligible to receive funding from the Kansas Fights Addiction Grant Review Board underneath the Kansas Fights Addiction Act. And the AG's office is not the entity that awards those grants, but rather the Kansas Fights Addiction Grant Review Board is the entity that has procedures, policies, and the power to actually award those grants. By adding this particular provision, we just add some confusion to who can award grants. So we'd rather direct that all of that be operating through the Kansas Fights Addiction Grant Review Board. Secondly, and to your question, Representative Stodgel, we're recommending that schools go towards to request naloxone from the state naloxone program. The state naloxone program is far more efficient than individual school districts acquiring naloxone. They can do so at a much lower rate than individual schools, and for the school district, it's free to the school district to acquire the naloxone that way. So we at the state, through the state Kansas Fights Addiction Grant Review Board, have frequently awarded grants to DECA to operate the state naloxone program to purchase naloxone. We've also provided naloxone kits that we've acquired through settlements, and so we think it's more efficient and more cost-effective to simply go through the state naloxone program rather than creating individual grants for individual schools to do that type of duplicative purchasing. It would also save us on the fiscal note. I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Thank you. Representative Ruiz, and then Schreiber.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for being here today. What is the shelf life of naloxone?
So right now, it's typically around, and I'm going to have DECA potentially answer that question here in a little bit, but it's typically around 2 years. However, there is an effort to extend the shelf life. It's going to require some federal government policy changes, but could extend it up to 10 years.
Representative Schreiber.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the testimony. I'm glad you brought up the trend in increase in fentanyl deaths. It's been recently reported that they're starting to kind of plateau a little bit. I don't know if we're seeing that in Kansas yet, or if you have any information on that.
According to the data I've seen, we have seen it start to plateau in Kansas, but we are not below the pre-COVID numbers yet. We're still at an elevated level.
Any other questions for the conferee? Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Representative Proctor, do you have another committee to get to? Please approach.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for hearing this bill. Thank you to the members of the committee for considering the testimony. I am Pat Proctor. I serve the people of Leavenworth and Fort Leavenworth here in the House, and I'm embarrassed to admit that I did not understand the scope of this problem when I came here. But 30 to 50 people overdose in Leavenworth every year. About a dozen of those are fatalities every single year. And I'll just tell you one story which sort of motivated me to get involved in this. I have a good friend named Andy Burris, and his son Cruz got a Percocet on Snapchat. The guy came right to the house, gave him the pill, took a few bucks, and he thought it would be cool to do it in front of his friends so they could share the experience with him. And he took that Percocet and it killed him. And his friends watched him die on FaceTime. And they were so afraid he'd get in trouble, they called his sister, tried to call his sister, but it was like 2 in the morning. So nobody woke up and his mom found him dead the next morning. This is happening. This is happening to our kids. And it's happening in schools too. So I would ask you to favorably consider this bill. I'll answer a couple questions that were raised by committee members. The shelf life issue, we have another bill that was heard in Health and Human Services that would allow us to ignore the shelf life because this stuff lasts for years and years. They put a shelf life on it so you'll go buy another one. And the question on the plateau, I'm also the chairman of the Kansas Security Committee. It ain't getting better. It's not getting worse anymore, which is good, but it ain't getting better either. I'll stand for questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Ruiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative, so you represent Leavenworth and the Fort. Do you have data of fentanyl overdoses on the Fort?
I have so Fort Leavenworth is technically inside the municipality, so I've just got the roll up. We have every year about 30 to 50 overdoses and a dozen fatalities. I don't know how many of them are on post versus off post because they just have an aggregate number.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions for the conferee? Thank you for being with us, and thank you for bringing us this bill. Next, we'll proceed to Josh Magaha. I'm so sorry. I know I did that wrong. It's been a trend this year.
Magaha. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Committee. My name is Josh Magaha. I've been at the Kansas City, Kansas Fire Department for 18 years. Been a fireman for 25 years. I want to say one thing. I got involved in the fentanyl epidemic in 2015. I've been detailed to our hazmat team, and I got sent to Baltimore City. Just to give you an idea, I walked into weapons of mass destruction. Sorry, can you hear me now? So I walked into a conference of weapons of mass destruction. Fentanyl is what they were talking about. 2 years later, went to a DEA conference, in the same conference, the National Hazmat Committee conference in Baltimore, and they were talking about overdose deaths. I came back to our city, and I started talking about fentanyl overdoses. And within that time, I started teaching our first responders until 2018. 2018, I'm actually your first educator in the state of Kansas. Since 2018, I've done over 15,000 pupils and adolescents and adults I've taught in the eastern side of the state, KCK, Leavenworth, northern Johnson County, and I do have your data. 1,290 overdoses. We had 2024, 2025, we're just shy of 1,000 in KCK. Now, that doesn't say it's fentanyl. We have some other data we have to get from there. I can get to you. With that being said, I've been in every school. Every single school that I have presented in, we've had an overdose. Every single school has Narcan that I have presented in now. So if there's any questions, I'm your guy on the eastern side of the state. I've been on the lines. I actually ride the seat at my company. We respond to about 6,000 calls a year, so I see it firsthand. So if you have any questions, I'm your guy.
And you would like to stand for questions?
Yeah, if you have any.
Questions for the conferee? Seeing none, thank you very much, and thank you for what you do for Kansas. Next, we will hear from Chrissy Mayer, Chief Community-Based Service Officer of the Douglas County Citizens Committee on Alcoholism.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the time. My name is Chrissy Mayer. I'm with DECA. We operate the state naloxone program. We've done this since 2020. Since that time, we've dispersed over 130,000 kits across the state. Of those kits, we have furnished kits to 205 school districts. It's my understanding there's about 290, so we are doing our part to try to ensure that districts have that. In addition to supplying kits, we also provide training and policy development for school districts to ensure that they're in compliance and just following regulations, and that they understand how to use naloxone and use it appropriately. We recognize the importance of equipping schools and communities with the tools. We consider Narcan much like an AED, and we've actually encouraged schools to place document or items like one boxes or nalox boxes so that it's easily accessible. If you keep naloxone in a nurse's office or locked away, time matters. And so we try to encourage districts to keep that in an accessible location so folks can get that, and that's part of our policy development as well. With the educational component piece, we also provide a lot of education and training to students and teachers as well about fentanyl and opioids in general, and we use evidence-based practices. We want to be sure we're giving correct information and not information that's scare tactic. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Questions for the conferee? I think, are you thinking about asking about shelf life again? Because I think I'd like to ask the expert, so I'll ask that question. Would you like to confirm or give us a different perspective on what you've heard about shelf life?
Yeah, so shelf life continues to grow. Right now for Narcan brand product, it's about 4 years. For generic product, it's about 3. The shelf life has been extended multiple times since the infusion of naloxone. Additionally, there's a lot of research out there that shows product is good for up to 30 years, even when exposed to extreme temperatures. So really safe, reliable product.
Thank you very much. Representative Schreiber did decide to jump in.
Yeah. For the school districts that you've not distributed to, do they get the Narcan or naloxone from somewhere else, or do they just not have it at all?
We are not aware of districts who don't request through us, so I'm not sure what a district who doesn't get it from us, I'm not sure where they get it or if they get it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam.
That might be a good question for KASB later. Thank you. Any other questions for the conferee? Chrissy, thank you for being with us, and thanks for what you do for Kansas. We'll call to the podium Stacy Rogers.
Hello. My name is Stacy Rogers, and I am here in strong support of House Bill 2489. I'm here not only as a grieving mother, I lost my son October 18th of 2022, but also as a grandmother of 2 young girls. They're teenagers. Like many families, we did not understand how dangerous fentanyl had become or how little margin of error there is. One exposure was all it took. House Bill 2489 is so important because it addresses this crisis in a realistic and life-saving way. It combines prevention through education with preparedness through access to naloxone. We need both. By requiring age-appropriate fentanyl education for students in grades 9 through 12, this bill ensures that young people receive adequate information about the risks of fentanyl and other opioids. Students need to know that fentanyl is now commonly found in counterfeit pills and other substances they may believe are safe. Education can prevent experimentation, and prevention saves lives. Just as critical is the requirement that schools maintain a stock supply of naloxone. Overdoses can happen anywhere, including schools and school-sponsored events. Naloxone is safe, easy to use, and has no abuse potential. Having it readily available gives staff the ability to act immediately while waiting for emergency responders. In an overdose, minutes matter. I strongly support using funds from the Kansas Fights Addiction Fund to help schools purchase naloxone. This ensures schools are supported financially and that opioid settlement funds are used to prevent further harm. HB 2489 is about protecting students and giving schools the tools they need to respond to a very real threat. If this bill can save even one life, it is worth passing. I urge you to support this bill. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Stacy, thank you. I know it's difficult. I gave you a little extra time as a chair's prerogative because I think it's very hard to come up and talk about something so personal. So I applaud your courage on that. We do have members with questions. Would you like to stand for questions?
Okay.
Representative Steele?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I met you last year in St. George. We were in the parade line, and I heard your story, and I just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for advocating for such an important thing. It's unfortunate that we have to advocate for this, but I thank you and your family for all the work you're doing in the St. George area.
Any other questions for the conferee? Stacy, thank you for being with us today, and thank you for the children that you're helping to save. Amber Sale from the TK Fights Fentanyl. I'm wearing the wrong glasses because I broke my glasses and I don't have time to fix them during session. Amber, go ahead, please.
My name is Amber Solly, and I'm here to speak as a grieving mother who lost her child, Kaylee, to illicit fentanyl, and a grandmother who had to adopt her grandson because a 16-year-old father passed away for trying a Percocet, what he thought was a Percocet. That led my other daughter into an active fentanyl addiction. Since the death of our daughter, Kaylee, we've been in schools giving presentations on the dangers of illicit fentanyl, and what we have found is that these kids don't know until it's too late. Families don't know about this until they know too much about this. We keep AED readily available all over in the schools. Naloxone needs to be as readily available. Sorry, when I talk about my daughter, it gets me a little shaky.
Take your time. I'm waiving the time limit for you.
Thank you. So I always, whenever I present, I tell people because they're afraid that someone's going to get hurt. Their kid's going to grab naloxone and it's going to hurt them, but it's not. It's safe to use. It's a safe as saline solution. We keep fire extinguishers in our house, not because we plan to start a fire, but because if a fire happens, we can put that out and safeguard our family. We keep school resource rooms stocked with warm clothing and gloves and hats to safeguard our children. Those are also harm reduction items. Naloxone's no different, and it should be treated no different. If we could get education to these kids, then we can break that cycle of addiction before it starts. A lot of families have children that are drug-endangered children, and they grow up thinking this is normal and it's okay because that's what they've seen their whole life. But if we can get ahead of that and teach them that their life matters and a whole generation is dying, we need you to save the next generation. I think that's very important, and it has saved so many lives. The way we put a dent in this number of children, especially Kansas children that are passing, is through education. Because, like I said before, if you don't know, you just don't know about it. I did not know until Kaylee passed. We lost 4 others in a year and a half to fentanyl. We didn't understand how that was happening. Once I found out about it, it was late. It was too late. And so now I do everything I can to educate the youth and to stand in front of moms and say, hey, be that safe landing spot for your kid to talk to. We place Save a Life stations all around Kansas to give no barrier access to naloxone. We've given our presentation in schools, and we leave behind naloxone that DECA provides me with. So I'm in strong support of this bill. Sweeping it under the rug doesn't make it go away. The only thing that will make this go away is to talk to our kids about it and do it repeatedly, because that's how it sticks in their brain. So I ask for your support to save our Kansas children and protect their futures and the future generations to come. Thank you.
Amber, thank you again also for your courage and for what you're doing to save lives today. Do we have questions for the conferee? Can you tell me how many stations you have?
I have 8 in Kansas, 1 in 8 in Topeka, 1 in Wyandotte County. I think we have 5 in, 7 in Manhattan, and 1 to be placed in St. George. And we have another getting ready to be placed in Topeka, but we have 13 more looking for homes.
Very, very good. I'm from Wichita. I hope we find a way to get some there as well. Thank you very much. Any questions for the conferee? Amber, thank you very much. I'll call on Kelsey Santaro, please. Is Kelsey here or on WebEx? Okay, that seems to be a mix-up of some sort. Representative Boatman?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I actually had a question for Conferee Magaha.
I think we're doing well enough to allow this. Sir?
Thank you, Chair. Just for my own edification and for anybody else who doesn't know, how much time is on average is there between the ingestion of a fatal dose of fentanyl and an overdose event, and how does Narcan, or however you say it, interrupt that overdose?
So it all depends on, one, the dosage of fentanyl, the mixture. It's, if you're a habitual user, if you're an accidental, if it's a poisoning. So you have to understand there's 2 types of users. You have your habitual that can use, they've overdosed usually 6 to 7 times before they realize they need help. They're going to take a much larger dose. As where it's, for me, I'm not 180 pounds, but 180-pound individuals, 2.55 milligrams is considered a lethal dose. That would kill 50% of the population. So, but there's no way to measure that. We have no way to measure that. So again, because these are street pharmacists, their mixer of choice is the magic bullet. That's how they mix, and they put in pill presses or however they're getting it out to the public. So, and the one thing he did ask, I wanted to say, you're seeing the facts right now saying the deaths are going down. That's being blanketed because we have so much Narcan out in the community now. It's still a problem, but there's so much Narcan in the community. You're seeing skewed results. So when our high tactical SWAT teams are going in to do a drug bust, they're seeing Narcan on the walls because they know that it's that potent. So again, back to yours. The Narcan that everybody in the public's getting is 4 milligrams. We carry 2 milligrams. We can give it nasally or intravenously. So usually when I first started in fire, we would give about 0.5 milligrams. We would titrate to effect. They usually, if it's an overdose, they throw up. We know they're usually upset because we took their high away. If it's true fentanyl or if it's even carfentanil, you're looking at 4, 8 to 12 milligrams. The most I've ever given on scene is 12. Our protocol actually had to get extended for those overdoses. But that's going to be a habitual user, or it could be a one-time user just got a pill that was heavily laced.
Thank you very much. We will move on to neutral testimony, and we always pick on Mr. Graham first. So today we'll we'll start with Mary, and the next time, Tim, you're first. Is Mary here or on WebEx? Mary Sinclair? Mary, you're... Oh, okay. I'll leave it up to you. Since you did submit testimony, do you want to just stay written only, or did you want to address anything? Please don't feel like you have to. I never like to put anyone on the spot. I've just given you options. I feel like I'm putting you on the spot. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, very good. Tim Graham?
Hello. Tim Graham with the Kansas National Education Association. The only reason I'm taking time on this bill today is because we're asking for an amendment. And let me explain what we're asking for. The definition of designated school personnel is a little bit broad, and it includes non-medical employees and volunteers who may be asked to administer naloxone outside the scope of their employment. So this raises some practical concerns about expectations that might be placed on staff who are not trained as health professionals. So What we'd like to do with that is ask for some language in the bill, which has been included in other bills, including the AED bill, that would give some liability to educators and school personnel should they use this. I know that the argument's been made that they're already covered under the Good Samaritan Act, but I think having a reference to liability in the bill would actually help bring down some of the fear that was described in a proponent testimony of people even touching the stuff. Having that peace of mind and that training at the local level and that liability would help in a big way for teachers. And I think it would actually save lives because people would be more apt to act quickly. Stand for questions.
Questions for the conferee. Representative Getz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Graham, for being here today and talking about that. I want to look into that amendment. I think it sounds like a good liability protection. But I've got another question on, so the in-school education, 100% agree with, but how much, and I was trying to get a question over to you, sir, but do you know, just representing the teachers, how many overdoses or fentanyl experiences are happening on a school campus or during a game or anything that's actually related to school time that the school really needs to have access to this? It seems like that would probably be somewhere else, but that is genuinely a question of how often does this happen in that environment that we need this there?
I don't know. I hear things more sometimes as a parent than I do even as a representative of KNEA. And on that, I hear more in talking to parents that it's definitely a problem. I haven't heard of an overdose in my community at school, but I obviously wouldn't be the first person they'd let know. So I wish I had a better answer for you.
I will allow Mr. Magaha to answer that question, and I think Mrs. Fleiter is indicating to me that she does not have a number. Do you have a number or an estimate or any feedback? And if so, please offer it from the microphone.
All I can say is I know we've ran an overdose in every USD 500 school in our district, and also I gave my first presentation. I grew up in Baser, so I gave a presentation to them first. 5 days later, there was an overdose, and they actually used Narcan in the high school that day. So that was 5 days afterwards. We don't keep track of that data, but we have about 4 to 5 in the city daily. But in the schools, we'd have to pull that data, and I think it would be tough for our QA/QI to pull that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I just don't want to put this in a place where it happens maybe the least. Let's have it in the closest proximity to where these events are occurring. Mostly, going to scenes like, thank you so much for what you're doing and trying to prevent this. But if you're saying that when you said that it happened in almost every USD, I was thinking, well, a student from that maybe did it off campus, but you are verifying that these things are happening on campus.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you very much. And someone asked, Rebecca, Representative Schmoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tim, I've got a question for you. Is any of this training happening right now, like professional development stuff in the schools? I know that we do a lot of CPR conversations and stuff like that when we're going through training. Are there schools that are addressing the fentanyl?
Again, I'm not the best person to ask, but you do see in my testimony that we do make reference to the fact that there is a lot of that education already going on, and we do appreciate that this bill allows for what you guys are asking to do can seamlessly be put into what's already being done in schools. I don't know how that training affects teachers, and so that's a homework.
All right, thank you so much.
It's a homework project for me.
Any other questions for the conferee? Seeing none, thank you for being with us today, Mr. Graham. Earlier, I noticed KSB on the list. I did not realize that you guys were written only, and I said, oh, maybe they could answer the question. Leah, would you like to answer that question?
Of course. Thank you, Madam Chair. And submitted written just in interest of time. We don't know how many districts keep it on hand other than the reference to the 205. If they, we don't have that number. But that was a good stat to hear that that number is known. I would like to share, if it's okay, Madam Chair.
Yes, you may.
KASB's legal staff has recommended policy for school districts on keeping and administering naloxone. And that is something that we have had in place and pushed out to our school districts for several years. So I hope that's helpful, and thank you for your indulgence.
You're very welcome. Thank you for letting me call on you in class today. Would the representative who asked that question, do they have a follow-up to that one for the conferees? Sometimes we get into very short time to speak, but because I like to allow a lot of time for the questions, that's important work for the committee. So seeing no other questions, I'm going to thank everybody who was here today, especially, again, I've been through something this year where I understand what it's like to lose someone you care very much about, and it's very hard to talk about. And so for the families who've been through this, you get a special thank you for being here today. We are going to close the hearing for 2489, and we will move on to the hearing for 2510. If you were only here for the first bill and you'd like to leave, this is a good time for an exchange, so you do not have to enjoy these uncomfortable seats longer than necessary. But if you enjoy hearing what we're doing, you're more than welcome to stay.
Oh, you sound very good.
Thank you. Thank you all for a very quick transition. We are going to move to 2510, and I'm going to begin by calling on Revisor Long to tell us about that bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 2510 would enact new law regarding the boards of education of school districts. There is already currently, and you can see in the bill in Section 2 statute authorizing the boards of school districts to appropriate and pay out monies from the general fund for annual dues for the Kansas Association of School Boards. What 2510 would do would be to enact a new state law, new Section 1, that would require the school districts to allocate the monies that they have appropriated for membership association dues to the various members of the board in equal proportion, and then pay out those dues depending on whether or not their individual board members elect to be a member of that, of the member association. So if certain board members elect to be part of the Association of School Boards, then the Board of Education would allocate and pay dues for that membership for those board members. It would not pay dues for those members who had not elected to be a member of the association. So there's an election there by the individual board members. The bill does define membership association. You see there lines 23 through 25, which is a corporation whose board membership is comprised of a majority of those who were elected to serve on a school district board of education. So there is that provision as well. This would go into effect on July 1st of this year if enacted, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Representative Chauncey?
Just for a point of clarification, Jason, so if they elect, this bill would let the local boards take out of their general fund to pay for members that choose to be, but if they chose not to be, they would keep that money?
Well, it would be appropriated, and so, yeah, they wouldn't be paid out of the general fund if they had elected not to be a member of that members association.
Thank you.
Additional questions for the revisor? Jason, you did a great job. We're not going to grill you today, but we'll try again another day. Okay, we're going to move right into testimony, and the first person on my list is Amy Covey, Chairman of the National School Board Coalition. Amy, welcome to committee. We're giving you a minute and a half, and we'll begin the timer when you begin to speak. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. As stated, I'm Amy Covey. I'm from Lansing, Kansas. I am the chairman for the National School Board Coalition for Kansas. But I was also a school board member in Lansing. I served 4 years there. I'm also here just as a volunteer on my own time. I'm here in the strong support of 2510 because this bill, it protects the fundamental ability to represent government of each elected school board member. And why I say that is we want to independently serve our constituents to the best of our ability, as I put in my submitted testimony. It's important because it preserves the autonomy of each school board member to decide what type of training that they would like to pursue. And as you know, boards can be very divided. I came from a board that was 4-3. 4 wanted to pursue the association and 3 did not. So when I was a school board member, there's several trainings that are now out there that weren't out there 5 years ago. They're virtually, they're in person, there's several different associations, some that charge, some that do not. But this would allow each individual board member to serve their constituents, and if they decide not to become a member of this association, then that money would stay with the district. I think that's very important. There's different trainings that I know I paid for out of pocket that this would serve as a way to be able to attend those that might not be available. Because as you know, school board members do serve on a volunteer basis and they're unpaid. So I think this would be a good way to support.
Amy, thank you. Thank you very much. Questions for the conferee. Representative Ruiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a quick question. You're a board member and your dues are paid for by the school district. What if there's any travel involved? How's that handled? To attend conferences?
Yes, if you do travel, you can elect to turn that, as a school board member, you can elect to turn that mileage in to your school. It's on an individual board basis, so we would have to get that approved ahead of time. When I traveled out to the western part of Kansas once, I did turn that in, but that was because that was for an event for KSB. If it was another organization, I traveled to Florida and I traveled to Tennessee for training. I paid that out of pocket myself. I wasn't able to turn that in.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if you have the answer or if this actually goes over to the reviser. So the bill says in equal proportion. So you were on a 4-3 board. So what if 3 people wanted to go to one thing and, I mean.
Yeah. You want to know the dollar amount or how you would do it?
Yeah, so what if you only have one person who wants to go to the Alternative School Board Association? Sure. Does that mean then only one person could have their dues reimbursed for KSB?
Well, the way that I understand that this is written, for instance, we would pay around, let's say 14,000 because a board of 7 is easier just to divide right now, right? So it was close, it was between 13 and 14. So that 2,000 would be for each individual school board member and up into that amount. And so it's not, right now it's currently paid directly to KSB, not reimbursed. But I don't know exactly what you're.
Okay, so I think proportion refers to how much money each member gets, not a proportion of board members.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
To add clarification, I will call on our reviser.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I apologize if I wasn't clear in my explanation, but it is the total amount that would be appropriated for dues for the members of the Board of Education would be equally proportioned among those members. So each member would receive an equal amount for expenditure on the dues.
Sorry.
And they can only use it for that purpose and not for travel or anything else. Would that be a correct statement?
Well, the portion, yeah, that's appropriated for dues would be paid for dues.
Okay, thank you. Representative McNorton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this is probably for the reviser too. But so what is that total based on, Jason? So if KSAB was $10,000, but you wanted to join the whatever school board association, that was $20,000, do we have something that sets what that is going to be a portion of?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, so the Board of Education, when it establishes the budget for the school district for the school year, will fix the total amount that it intends to spend for dues for its members of its Board of Education. That total amount, whatever it appropriates, is then to be equally proportioned among its 7 members of the school board.
Thank you.
Any questions for the conferee? Amy, thank you for being with us today. And Jason, I think they decided to let you sit down first. I have Tracy Frederick, Executive Director of Kansas School Board Resource Center on WebEx. Do we see her on WebEx?
Yes, ma'am, I am here.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of SB 2510. First of all, I want to make sure that everybody knows that the Kansas School Board Resource Center is a nonprofit organization that provides student-focused training, guidance, and other services to state and local school board members at no cost. So as such, HB 2510 has no impact on whether school board members have access to KSBRC training conferences or workshops. So the information that I'm going to share with you today comes directly from feedback that I received from Kansas school board members across the state who would like the opportunity to use the funds that are approved by the state at their discretion for access to organizations that offer training, that provide support and insight into issues that are affecting their district specifically. So these school board members are seeking opportunities to better serve their constituents and to learn from different perspectives about how to overcome the challenges that their districts face every single day. So the concerns over this specific situation, the current system, is a financial burden that was already mentioned just a few moments ago on school board members. As you all know, I think probably some of you there in the room may have even served as a school board member. This is a volunteer position. We know that school board members spend countless hours, nights, and weekends in meetings supporting their districts. And so the current system does not allow individual school board members to join organizations that offer opportunities or professional development or support or alignment with their district values or constituents. That's what I hear. So the current system is an all or nothing situation as well for school board members. Every board member must attend training or not attend at all from resources from the same source, or reach into their own pocket, as was discussed earlier, and fund their own memberships with organizations that may offer new insight on how to improve student outcomes or help improve their board leadership. Our organizational mission is to support districts to improve academic achievement. We believe that this can be accomplished by partnering with a lot of different kinds of organizations
Tracy,
and experts.
Tracy, you're out
Yes,
of
ma'am.
time.
Thank
you. Would
you.
you like to stand for questions?
I would. Thank you so much.
Questions for the conferee, Representative Getz, and then McNorton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just, you seem very, very knowledgeable. Thank you for your testimony. How many other organizations that would require a monthly compensation or an annual compensation, how many other companies would board members be able to access in Kansas specifically? What are their other options? I know yours is free, so that option is
Right.
open, but what other ones would, in a sense, require this bill to move into action so that they could access those funds?
Specifically in Kansas, I can't tell you the name of an organization. There may be some others who are on this call or in the room that might be able to give you that. We know that we have school board members who access national organizations. There are a lot of wonderful national organizations that come into Kansas or come into other states that offer those kinds of trainings, specifically like the Leadership Institute, if you're familiar with them, School Boards for Academic Excellence, or other state organizations that also provide insight into some of these, national situations and challenges that are facing school boards, not just in Kansas, but also across the nation.
Thank you. And Representative McNorton did not have a question. Are there any other questions for the conferee? Tracy, thank you for being with us today. We will move to Superintendent Jim Howard. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, committee members. My name is Jim Howard. I have been superintendent for 10 years. I'm currently the superintendent at North Jackson Heights. Throughout my career in Kansas, I'm coming from a different point of view on this. It was really understood early on, since Kansas Association of School Board was the only option for schools. It was the only option for a superintendent as far as when it came to being actually getting to serve as a superintendent. They would be the ones that handled most of the searches. So it was kind of very obvious up front. I did not know my first year. You don't really know anything in your first year. I was very surprised after the end of my first year because we got a bill. So, you think, well, this is something we all have to be a part of. Why am I paying a bill? That was when I realized that this was actually more of a vendor who we paid monthly or we paid annual dues to. So even at all my time I was at Hoxie and then here, there was a lot of disgruntled board members who did not agree with Kansas Association of School Boards, would ask me questions about why are we members? Do we have to be members? And my only answer was, yeah, I think we do. And a lot of it was because that was the only place I had to go in order to bring information and training to them. That really hit kind of a boiling point for us in 2023. We were lobbying a bill that severely injured our school as far as financially. KSB lobbied directly against that, even though we said this is really going to hurt the school. That was kind of when we knew this wasn't going to be the organization for us. We finally stepped away at the end of 2023-24. We were the first school to actually leave KSB, and we were kind of on an island. We couldn't spend taxpayer money on any other organization. The KSBRC was the only one that was free, so that was really the only choice we had as a school to get recommendations for a pretty big legal fight we had the next year. My testimony today is not.
You're out of time. I'll begin with the first question.
Yeah.
You say that. What's your motive in wanting this law?
My motive is I want school board members to have a choice as far as what kind of training they receive. When they felt like they were obligated and they felt there was things maybe philosophically they disagreed with, or they saw legislation that was being pushed they didn't agree with, they had no ability. They felt like they were just giving their money to an organization that they didn't align with.
Thank you. Questions for the conferee? Representative Getz?
So thank you, Madam Chair, after you left KASB and then joined another one or didn't join another one, what was that transition like? Was there legal ramifications for that because this bill wasn't enacted? You didn't necessarily have permission to do that, but you did do that? A little bit of that process.
The way the bill was written is it doesn't give you permission. You don't have to be in there. You just can't use taxpayer money in any other way for any other organization. We had legal representation from, honestly, colleagues. And one of the biggest things we found out, when it does come to actually legally being represented, they won't come to court. They won't actually give you anything more than advice. So when I had legal questions, I just referred to the legal people we had in our insurance. So if I had an actual legal fight, I would just call a lawyer. But like I said, we were on an island. But it wasn't illegal to leave. You just can't spend that money anywhere else. So we couldn't join anywhere else of similar services.
Representative McNorton?
So in your opinion, did that feel like a single source or a sole source provider? It was your only choice?
By law, it was the only choice. Yeah, it felt like when I had to tell my school board, this is the only place you can go. And when we need training, we got new board members, the only place that I could offer was the Kansas Association of School Boards, and they weren't interested. And so either we have training they're not interested in, then every year I got to propose, hey, here's the dues, here's the bills, and they have to vote on it, and begrudgingly they did because that was their only option.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the conferee? Seeing none, we will move down to Representative Megan Steele.
Madam Chair, members of committee, we meet again third or fourth time in the past couple weeks. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. The previous conferees are exactly why I brought this bill. They mentioned choice. They mentioned local control and local control through choice. And this bill ensures that we have responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars, and that's something that we are all fighting for here. This legislation strengthens the transparency. If a school board member doesn't want to belong to an association, the taxpayer dollars don't get used. They stay in their school funds. If a member wants to join an association that other members aren't okay with, it's okay. This bill would allow them to do so. This bill freezes costs for non-participating members, as I said. It reduces unnecessary spending, and it allows when school board members receive the training that they feel best represents them and the constituents that they represent, they themselves become better school board members, which are going to help make our schools be better and help our students be learning to read, write, and do basic math. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions for the conferee? Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How do we assure taxpayers that their dollars are being spent only on evidence-based trainings for school board members?
Madam Chair, members of committee, I'm not even sure that currently right now that that's being done by schools.
Any other questions for the conferee? Thank you. We will move on to WebEx with Kristen Workman.
Hi, my name's Kirsten Workman. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now, please proceed.
Thank you. I'm a school board member from Lansing. The views I express are my own and do not represent the board. I'm here to urge you to recognize the importance of allowing individual school board members to join professional organizations of their choosing, independent of district level affiliation, and to access equivalent district funds to do so. When a board of education affiliates with an organization, that decision carries financial and political implications that not all voters support. In addition to drafting almost all district policy, many of these statewide organizations engage in legislative advocacy, and their positions do not always align with the values of every community. Freedom of individual affiliation, by contrast, would allow board members to pursue training, legal knowledge, and governance resources without committing the board and subsequent tax dollars to a single organization's positions. Allowing school board members access to more than one professional organization will prevent any singular organization from becoming the dominant voice shaping our local decisions. Here's an example of the influence one organization can have over local government. Our board recently contracted with our affiliated school board association for board member training. The training focused heavily on projecting public unity. Independent board member action was framed as harmful to public education. Professional development felt more like behavior modification. As a result of this training, our board is now considering procedures that remove individual members' ability to add agenda items, limits our ability to speak freely during meetings, and to only entertain policy changes that are recommended by the superintendent, which I find concerning. I need access to professional development that helps me fulfill my role as a board member, not training to delegate my judgment. So I'm in favor of this bill, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for being here. Would you like to stand for questions?
Yes, I'm happy to do that.
Questions for the conferee. Representative Boatman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you enumerate some of these alternative associations that you're speaking of? Because I'm not familiar with any of them.
Alternative associations where I might seek like guidance, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, outside of the Kansas Association of School Boards.
So I often go to the Kansas School Board Resource Center, the School Boards for Academic Excellence, and other national organizations. It is burdensome to try and find information that, my perspective, I think our local option has a fundamental different view of a school board member's role. So I'm always searching, and that takes time and energy and resources that I spend on my own time.
Any other questions for the conferee? Seeing none, Kirsten, thank you for being with us today. We will now move down to opponent testimony and begin with Leah Fleiter.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Leah Fleiter, Assistant Executive Director of Advocacy for KASB. We are a private, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that was founded in 1917. We serve more than 300 boards, including the K-12 boards of education and the boards of community and technical colleges. So we are the largest body of elected officials in the state at about 2,000 strong. We have served with honesty, integrity, and transparency throughout those years, and we hope to do so for many years to come. I was glad to see Ms. Covey today. She was a member of KASB's Leadership for Tomorrow Leadership Development class, and so it was good to see her again. We have advocacy, legal services, policy development services that we provide to our members. You know, I already mentioned about the naloxone policy that we have provided for several years. These are services that save our districts millions of dollars a year, and those are our funds that they can then focus on ensuring the success of each Kansas student. We note in our testimony, other local governments that are also a similar situation are not included in this bill. We also, let's see, what was I going to say? I had too many notes here and new glasses, Madam Chair. So I think I'll just wrap up and say we would respectfully urge the committee to focus its attention on more fruitful pursuits. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ms. Flighter. One of the last things you said was something about other associations
Yes.
not in this bill. Could you repeat that sentence for
Yes,
me,
please. Other local government entities in Kansas have similar membership structures in place. The entity such as the Board of Education or the City Commission or the County Commission, they also pay dues to their statewide organization, very, very similar setup to ours, but they are not included in the scope of House Bill 2510. So we wanted to bring that to your attention because it seems to be inconsistent.
I think it's a matter of what goes where. I think some of those you mentioned the city councils, I think that would go to local government. They're of a different nature. So I think
Okay. Thank you for that feedback.
You're welcome. Representative Chauncey, and then Representative Stogsdale, and then Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick, I'm reading through your testimony. I mean, just in your first sentence, you says this bill fundamentally misunderstands membership organization function and conflicts with the principle of majority rule.
Yes.
But I've seen you here numerous times before advocating for local control. Would this not be a direct conflict with allowing the school boards to utilize local control to decide where they want to get their resources?
No. School districts don't get their resources from the Board of Education. You know, the K-12 funding is provided by the legislature, so I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding your question. The majority rule piece is that, you know, when a board takes a vote, there was a reference earlier to 4-3. You know, if you are a legislator or a school board member or a city commissioner, you have a motion, you have to get, in the case of the school board member, you have to get 3 friends to go along with you, right? Or in a county commission, 1 or 2. Is it 2 for, is that the quorum? Yeah, so, you know, that's part of working together and achieving majority rule for the motion that you would like to see pass. And so that was what my reference was to. I apologize if I'm misunderstanding your question.
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Stogsdale.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Most organizations I've seen like yours really have due structure that covers a whole organization, like a school board.
Yes.
You have provisions for individual memberships from school boards?
Well, the structure is such that a board, as a board entity, as an entity, they are charged dues to belong to KASB based on the size of their budget. Okay, so, you know, Shawnee Mission School District pays higher dues than Otis Bison. Those two could not be further from each other, right? As far as budget size. So that's how it works. Am I misunderstanding your question?
I'm just saying if you have a school board with 7 members.
Right.
and 5 want to join but 2 don't, do you restructure your dues system?
No, because the board is the member, not the individual board members. Thank you for allowing me to clarify that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have next Representative Featherston.
I think that pretty much covers my question, but I guess to clarify, you provide legal services to boards. So if any portion of that board did not belong to CASB, you could not provide legal backup to that school district.
You know, I am not, could I do phone a friend? Our Deputy Director and General Counsel is here, and she is a registered lobbyist, Angela Stahlmarmer. Could I ask her to clarify that, because she's our legal guru? Thank you, Madam Chair, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question. It's an excellent question, to be honest. I've not seen case law on it, but we do represent the board as a whole. So I believe if we had a vote of no confidence in our ability to represent the board as a whole, we probably could not provide representation in that way. So thank you for the question.
But that would be a policy decision on your own. There wouldn't be a law that prevents you from doing that. Because it seems like it's the way you organize yourselves.
Well, so we would, it's complicated because, oh, excuse me. There you go. So Kansas law, if you're looking for the statute, Kansas law KSA 721138 is the one that says that 4 affirmative votes are required to pass any school board action, right? So, generally we have leaned upon that to say if, whether it's a 4-3 vote or it's a 7-0 vote, to join KASB or our legal assistance fund, that is a vote that they are confident in joining as a unit, as a board unit, into KASB and our legal assistance fund, and that allows us to enter into a contract for legal representation of them, to represent them in different legal matters, and all of that. If we have a situation where we have law that counteracts that, that essentially says that can unravel the other law that makes that less than true, then it calls into question whether or not 4 board members can carry a vote or can take any action. Does that make sense?
I guess we can continue it offline, because I don't necessarily see a distinction, because if you have a split board vote and you become that board's, if enough people on that board say they want you to represent them legally, and a board is probably going to have to approve your legal advice.
What we would have would be a situation where those individuals would remain on that board. And so it becomes very complicated for us to provide representation unless they choose to recuse themselves from those conversations, from those opportunities to discuss, and for us to engage with them. They'd have to have their own attorneys, and that would get messy.
And I think that's what they're asking, to recuse themselves. So I think the status quo could remain, but it's an interesting discussion. Representative Featherston, did you have a follow-up?
Well, I'm going to go to mom of an attorney mode. So say 4 board members are a member of your group and 3 are a member of someone else, another group, and you're negotiating a contract or doing something legal, really regardless of where that goes, I feel like somebody's going to be in legal liability. So they decide to do what these 3 recommended, and then the rest of town doesn't like it, and now they're suing the school board, because I feel like it's a liability issue for the board, that they're going to get sued because they don't have consistent advice.
Right. Yeah, yes. So I guess what I should say is, any individual board member could get advice, legal advice, seek out legal advice on their own. Legal advice is available through KASB membership, through part of our legal assistance fund, as some of the conferees have talked about. We have They can call us, they can email us, we'll consult with them on different legal issues. Ultimately, our client is the member board, so there are times where, there are individual board members that probably don't agree with the advice that we're giving, that we believe we are zealously, representing our client board to the best that we can represent them. But we have to, we have to put that foot forward. They can seek out their own legal counsel, but there is one school district board. There is one school entity. And so you really have to have a one unit representation. You have to make decisions as a unit, and that's how they function. Sorry, I don't think I'm clarifying.
That's okay. You've ignited a lot of interest in the topic, and that's a good thing. A discussion is important. Representative Getz?
Yeah, it did just get way more interesting. Thank you, Madam Chair. Because I get the perspective of, okay, we need legal representation for this group of people. They make a decision that's unpopular. But I think they could still have legal defense as their group decision, but also have individual freedom to be able to say, hey, with my dues, I want to get advice and bring it to this board, and I still may get voted down every time. But I have the right to access this other source, but we could still have overarching legal representation that protects all of us. So I feel like they could both work together, I guess what I'm saying.
And is it okay, Madam Chair, for me to?
I know it's more of a statement, but your response to that of maybe where some complications, and you've explained some of them, but those complications that couldn't be worked out in that system.
Well, I feel like there's been a little bit of misinformation that's been presented, in that I don't believe there are any legal prohibitions to school districts being able to get the types of services that KSB provides. And I know this is a terrible way to market my association, right? But there is nothing magical, right, about what we do. We believe that what we do very well. And we have caring people that do it, and we believe in a mission, and we put together a package of services for school districts, and we do it as a nonprofit. So we're not looking to make big dollars. We're not looking to charge unbelievable rates. So, districts could go out and they could seek legal services elsewhere. They could go out and they could get board training elsewhere. They could go out and get insurance other places. All of those packages are available in different places. It's just that we provide it under one umbrella. We provide it through membership to KSB, and we provide that membership through, a one vote, one board collectively joining our group, our association as a unit. And that's how we're structured. We feel like we do a good job of doing that. And the good news is we're a free country, free enterprise. People can go and they can come back. If they want to, they can seek out other options. And that's what makes us a great country. So there's nothing saying districts do not have the ability to shop around. That just only makes us hopefully better at what we do, because we understand that districts have options, and we're working at being better.
Okay, I have Representative Schmoy, Brantley, Steele, Wolf, Hubert, and Chauncey for a second time, and I also have a clicking clock. So if we could be succinct questions and succinct answers, please. Representative Schmoy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Leah, this one's for you. Is there any inherent harm in allowing diversity in school board training?
I don't think we said there was that in our testimony.
I'm just trying to figure out why you guys are opposition instead of neutral on this.
Because it's inserting, it's not consistent with what we know our organization to function as Ms. Stahlbaumer noted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Brantley.
Madam Chair, and thank you for being here today. It was asked earlier if any of the other alternative agency organizations would train in evidence-based practices. Do you all train in evidence-based practices, and if so, what are some of those examples?
I might need to defer that to Ms. Stahlbaumer. We do a broad range of trainings that are gauged on best practice and legal requirements. Angie, are you able to pitch in a little bit?
If you don't mind, I'm sure. Our leadership department does a lot of this. They're involved and they work very closely with the Kansas State Department of Education with evaluation and all of those different models. So I would say yes, especially with training school district leadership on evaluation and instruction and all of those things. That is a big area of focus for us.
Thank you. Representative Steele.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure which one of you want to answer. Probably, I forgot your name, I'm sorry. Angie. Is it true that schools can opt out of their legal services with you?
Yes, so membership in the Kansas Association of School Boards is one thing, and then if they choose to, they can be a member of our legal assistance fund. Those are two separate things. But they have to be a member of the Kansas Association of School Boards to be a member of our legal assistance fund.
I haven't given other people a second chance because of the clock. Representative Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here today and clearing this up. Did I hear correctly, and I may not have, when we were first starting to talk about this, you said if one isn't a member, then we can't represent any of the board because that's a conflict. Did you say that or not? Can you, if 6 people are a member and one isn't, is that a conflict then for you to represent them?
Well, at this point, we understand the law to say that if 4 members approve membership, that they're our member, and the state law says that. What we have in front of us is legislation that says that we could have partial membership. And so our law isn't really designed that way. I think we're going to have to go back to the drawing board, and I'm probably going to need to do some research. So what I probably should have said is, let me do some research, but I think I feel more comfortable in saying that I don't believe that there is an easy way to represent 6/7 of a Board of Education or 4/3 of a Board of Education, if that makes sense. It's kind of an all or nothing thing because you have one entity that you're representing.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Thank you, Representative Hubert, and then we are going to move along. If we have time at the end, we can bring Angie back for this second round of questions that a few people had. Representative Hubert?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Angie, I appreciate, first of all, you're very good at what you do. I wanted to ask you kind of the same question I think that Representative asked. Because as a former school board member, I was in the minority, and to my Democratic colleagues, it's not fun to be in the minority. I remember receiving training, and you can say nonpartisan or non-biased, but I could tell from my perspective, most of the time that was not the case. But I was in the minority. So even in this bill, and then with the question that was asked as far as why oppose options, and it appears that's what's happening with the position that was stated as opposed to in a free market competing for the services and allowing options as opposed to, appears, maybe I'm wrong as far as the opposition to this is maybe in a different perspective as besides what you're saying, to do better, to compete, and to get confidence in the services that you provide and the legal opinions you provide.
I think I think what this bill doesn't focus on is that our membership already has those options, that they can vote with their feet now, right? That they can take their ball and go home already. And those options represent, they're already there. And we can do that without dismantling our association or without calling into question, you know, the validity of representation or who we represent or how we, you know, handle our dues structure. That's part of the concern, is that we have, you know, a law built on the understanding that a school board, if you have 4 affirmative votes, that carries. We have the Kansas Open Meetings Act that says, hey, we conduct all our business in a certain way. And what this does is say that we're allowing single persons on a body to essentially make decisions on their own, and that's not how these boards operate.
Maybe it's to seek advice on their own?
Yes.
We're getting into a second round. I want to treat everybody the same. Angie, thank you very much. We will go to Jim Carlskent from the United School Administrators.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, it seems like when I come up here to talk to you, it's almost 3 o'clock every time I'm here. I don't know if you're trying to tell me something.
Change your last name to begin with an A.
Well, it starts with a K. It's kind of in the middle, but Jim Carlskent with USA Kansas. You know, and I'm going to speak to you from a perspective of a former superintendent, you know, representing, you know, school leaders. You know, an effective board works as a governing team, not as individuals. There is inconsistent policy knowledge by board members when you go one place or another place. It reduces board cohesion with this bill. It increases conflict and inefficiency. Local boards and superintendents should collectively decide which professional organization they belong to. House Bill 2510 weakens governance, increases administrative workload, undermines board unity, and diverts attention away from students. You know, an example, I think it was Representative Smoy that asked about, you know, okay, let's go to one group for training and go to another group for another. I think where you might find, I got 30 seconds, where you might find some issues at is with respect to collective bargaining. You know, that could be, you know, for those of you that are board members, and Representative Hubert and others have been there before, collective bargaining, you need to have, you know, working together. And if, you know, if a board decides, I want to leave KSB, that's fine. You know, I think Jim Howard, you know, from Jackson Heights, you know, you guys aren't members, are you? No. Okay. And there's others that have that option too. Lansing could be, well, I don't think they've got 4 there, but they nearly have had it, you know, over the years. So, you know, they have those. I'll be quiet. Okay, and stand for questions.
No, that's okay. I think questions are important for learning. Any questions for the conferee? Are you saying you have a question, Representative Wolf? I think we're out of time to go backwards at this point. But I think that anybody who's testified would welcome follow-up questions. Any questions for this conferee? Seeing none, Jim, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. And now we will bring Mary Sinclair up to the front. It's nice to have you with us today.
Thank you. I am Mary Sinclair with the Volunteer Kansas Parent-Teacher Association. We are opposed to this bill primarily in response to the interference with the contracting authority of local boards. As parents and patrons, we support the informed votes of locally elected school boards as a body to provide the governance and oversight of our districts. This includes oversight of district budgets and contracts. This bill appears to suggest that school districts would be expected to prorate their contracts based on board vote percentages, as kind of has been reflected today. And it's not clear how this would even work or to what extent this is establishing precedents to deny a majority rule for this one class of elected officials. For these reasons and out of our recognition for local control, we ask you all to oppose this bill.
Thank you. And you were, I think, our fastest today. Would you like?
I tried to get it tight.
I appreciate that. Would you like to stand for questions?
I'd be happy to, Madam Chair.
Any questions for the conferee? Representative Getz?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your testimony. I just wondered if you would comment on the seeming contradiction on local control, but not local control for each of those board members to be able to have their own rights to say, here's where I want to get my information. I know I'm still part of a team. I'm going to come back, and whether I'm in the majority or the minority, like that seems like also a local control to that individual. So how do you decipher those two?
It's local control of the body, so school board members operate as a body, and thinking about the oversight that our school boards have over our districts and how they allocate those funds, you have to have that majority to, like any other elected body, majority rule of how those resources are going to be allocated and how they're going to be spent. And so if you have, so collectively, I would think most school board members are going to be very reticent or not very conscientious and very limited about how they would spend resources, say on national conferences. That to me would be pretty expensive relative to accessing kind of more local kinds of opportunities for professional development. But it really is about, local control is about the body, not the individuals, much like any other elected group.
Thank you. Any other questions for the conferee? So Mary, I think this is the first time you've gotten to be in person in a while. It's nice to have you in person. I always feel terrible that we get the WebEx. I feel like we've started just putting them in alphabetical order. And thank you for always being on time and accurate with your testimony. Seeing no further testimony, I feel like I'm out of time to get through everybody who wanted a second question, and I want to be fair to everybody, so I'm going to let you guys follow those up afterwards. For those of you who have ed budget next, you're kind of lucky that you don't have ed budget today. So Angie, I think you're going to have a line in front of you. Also, you may have noticed that I had a bill referred back to committee. When I did the substitute bill, it was the Credit Act bill. I felt like there was a phrase that I regretted leaving out, and I wanted to get that back, and I'll be coming back we'll work on that. A few people were like, what bill was that, and why'd you bring it back? It's a relatively minor thing. Gabby, I have some certificates for you in my office. And I would say watch for the agenda to change because of a few bills were referred in to our committee that I didn't expect, and one, at least one was referred out that I didn't expect. I want to thank everybody for a very great discussion, and I hope you all have a great day. I'm going to turn the chairmanship, and we are meeting tomorrow, like just as a reminder, I'm going to turn the chairmanship over to the vice chair because he said he wanted to hit the gavel. Would you like to adjourn us?
Meeting adjourned. Not session.
Michelle, I just want to, so sorry. Yeah, Mary said thank you.